I am now creating weekly exclusive content for Patreon, so if you are interested in that, go check out the link down below. And of course, if you want to avoid the random lottery of FIFA points, you want to go straight to the source, buy the players directly, use u7buy.com and use the code TVM at checkout. What is going on, guys? TVM here. Welcome back to yet another video. I did an icon video recently, which went down reasonably well. I want to thank you for the support on it, but it was more sort of what I think EA are going to do and the sort of highest potential players rather than the ones that I want to see. So in today's icon video, you're going to see a selection of those who, again, maybe that I left out from the last video, even though they have a high potential of making it in, but also ones that I really want to see. And you can argue that some of them are not even classed as quote-unquote icons, but I don't really care. I just want these cards back in FIFA. They've retired. They should bring a new system in where it's not just icons, it's like club legends. I've said this before. It doesn't look like we're going to get that, but if they could just bring these in as icons, that would be class. First player is going to be Puskas. I don't really know an awful lot about him, but he is a player that is just world-renowned at being one of the best ever. And he has 617 games with 597 goals throughout his career. I'm not sure of his assists because, again, it's like he's such an ancient player, if you will, that records didn't really... Well, they existed, but they weren't really too accurate. So either way, it would be an unbelievably good card, very high rated, and I would have thought very expensive. Gabriel Batistuta up next. Now, this is a player that, again, I mean, this is one that I would like, but also one that I think EA could bring into the game. It's quite a common name when you think of icons and what players could be brought into the game. This is one of those that comes to mind quite quickly. 431 games, 238 goals. Again, the assists are a bit iffy, so I'm not going to commit to how many assists that he has. Not that he's like an old player or anything, through the 90s in particular, but yeah, I don't really know why the assists are a little bit obscure. And like I'm seeing like between 10 and 20 assists throughout his career. Surely he had more than that. But either way, again, would be a relatively high-rated card, very pacey, unbelievably good in front of goal with some insane dribbling. I would love to see Gabriel Batistuta get himself an icon card, finally. Many would argue that John Terry doesn't deserve one. I do, because he might not be an icon outside of the Premier League, but when you think of the Premier League's greatest defenders, okay, he might not be the first name that comes to mind, but he's up there. He really is up there. Unfortunately, with this icon, it would be another one of those English players that you pack and you're not really too happy to pack him unless you're a Chelsea fan or maybe a fan of another club that he played for, but just wouldn't be one of those with great pace. Unbelievably good defensive stats and great physicals. Over 700, or I say around 750 games. I think that was in and around the exact figure. He's got nearly 70 goals and 30 assists from a centre-back. But would be solid nonetheless. Hopefully, if pace isn't like the be-all and end-all going into the next FIFA, then he could actually be quite usable. I've already mentioned XAVI in the previous video, and I won't dwell on this too long, but apparently this is a quote-unquote confirmed icon for FIFA 21, and I say that because it has been leaked that there are 3 icons. I mean, there's going to be 11 or 12 in totaling 100 icons in FIFA 21. I say 12 new ones, but XAVI is one of the 3 that has been quote-unquote confirmed. We know Cantona's in the game. He was in the trailer. But XAVI wasn't anywhere near the trailer, but apparently is one of those that has been uncovered by the people who do all the leaks. And they're from quite credible people who get a lot of things right. From XAVI to ETO'O, another quote-unquote confirmed player by the leakers. We don't know this is, actually confirmed, but it's coming from fairly credible sources that ETO'O is the 3rd and final player that they've uncovered. So if that's true, ETO'O, XAVI and Cantona with another 10 or so to come, that is quite exciting, if I'm honest. I'm hoping that there are an awful lot of sort of near-modern players, those who have only recently retired. ETO'O has only recently retired in the last 5 years. XAVI the same. Cantona is an older one from the 90s. I do like the older players like Zico and Puskas and things like that. They're nice to see back in the game. But as far as nostalgia is concerned, I would like to see players that I watched growing up and those that I've used in previous FIFAs that now I miss. For example, Samuel Eto'o. He would be a fantastic icon. Beckenbauer is a player who is often mentioned when we think of new icons. Just one of those sort of iconic German defenders that, again, comes up in every conversation. Oh, I wonder what icons we're going to get this year. Or maybe a Beckenbauer. You know, he's just one of those sort of top players that you just expect to see, to be honest. 668 games in total for him, and again, would be a fantastic centre-back. One of the best in the world ever. So you can expect him to be mighty expensive if he does get himself into FIFA 21. This is another one of those sort of older players that, again, would be nice to see, but it's not one that's like really high on my list, but it's one that comes up in conversation all the time. It's STEFANO, and he has played around 563 games with 400 goals. It's not an exact science because, like I said, records from back then not exactly accurate, but definitely worth a mention. And again, very much like Pele and Maradona, he's not quite in the same bracket as those in terms of conversation. You know, if I talk to my mother, for example, and I said, hey, you know Pele? She'd go, yes. If I went, hey, do you know Maradona? Yeah, of course I do. Do you know Di Stefano? No. Who the hell is that? Is he a chef? You know, she wouldn't have a clue. So he's not really as world renowned, but still a fantastic player that would be good, very good in FIFA 21. A player that I see branded around a lot is Dimitar Berbatov, and it's one of those players that I would consider a club legend rather than an actual legend, or an icon, if you will. I don't know, it's a weird one. I know a lot of people will disagree with me and say, no, he is an icon. And, you know, I kind of get it. He does have some very memorable moments, some iconic moments, if you will. 605 games, 243 goals, and 99 assists. Shame he couldn't get to that 100. But he has got some very memorable moments in football. His spins and what have you, and just, you know, he looks like he's really lazy, and then all of a sudden just pulls out a moment of magic, creates a goal, scores a goal, whatever it may be. He was a genius, a very underrated genius, I might add. But again, in my opinion, it kind of falls under that sort of club legend rather than it does actual icon, which would be good to see EA introduce. But for the time being, if we can't have them, just bring him in as an icon. Robin van Persie is a player that, again, is sort of that modern icon that would be good to see come back in. It's a little bit interesting to me, and I'd love to know the mechanics behind the decision-making and the sort of how it works. But when players are in FIFA, and like, for instance, Fernando Torres was in FIFA 19, and then he retired, and of course now he's not in FIFA 20, what is stopping EA from literally just negotiating to convert him into an icon? I don't really understand the inner workings of it, to be fair, because surely they already have everything in place to put him back into the game. I'm aware that they have licensing with the league rather than individual players, but it surely wouldn't be that difficult to discuss. So to see Robin van Persie with his 698 appearances and 324 goals, 98 assists, in FIFA 21 would be very nice. Not exactly a player that I would consider usable, but definitely one for Arsenal and Man United fans alike. Diego Forlan is branded around an awful lot, and again, I don't know if I would consider him an icon. Definitely a club legend for several clubs, actually, but I don't know about an icon. He played for a lot of clubs, in a lot of leagues as well. You know, Spain, Italy, Premier League, of course, Argentinian league he had to go in. I think there was another league as well he played in, but he's got 637 games, 259 goals, and 82 assists to his name. He's won 7 titles across all those leagues as well. Would be a decent card, but I think he was sort of borderline on the same as Robin van Persie in terms of he wouldn't have a great deal of pace, but would still be desirable for many football fans. MAICON is a player that comes up a lot in discussion when you think of future icons as well. But I've not mentioned him this year. Last year when I did a video on icons, MAICON would have been mentioned. This year I've kind of kept him quiet, but I think it would be nice to see him in the game. Yet another Brazilian that you'd be chuffed to pack, regardless of which version of the card that you actually get, because this guy is just a very solid, well-rounded player. And throughout his entire career across several leagues, again, France, we have Premier League, Italian League, there is another league in there as well. It might be the Portuguese league he played in. Just a solid player throughout the years, and always one that you could rely on. Especially in previous FIFAs, you'd always go to MAICON, and he'd always be one of those expensive players. But it would be nice to see him get himself an icon card for FIFA 21. Wesley Sneijder up next, and one of those players who doesn't like... In the back of my mind, he never lived up to expectation. But when you look at his accolades, and you look at his goal-scoring record, his assists, the amount of games he's played, the teams he's played for, you kind of think to yourself, well, actually, the guy had a fantastic career. He was linked with Man United every Friday. Never really happened. He played for some of the biggest teams in Europe. You know, we're talking Real Madrid, Inter, Ajax, and then, of course, we're talking Galatasaray, Nice, and he played for someone else as well. I can't remember who that was. But, you know, he played for some really, really big clubs. He won 21 titles across his 573 games playing professional football, 152 goals, 147 assists. I would love to see this guy get himself an icon. I think he'd be very, very useful as well, because he'd have very good passing and dribbling stats, which it does look like in FIFA 21 are going to be very desirable. George Weah, a player that I remember growing up as being the player that everybody confused for an American. He's not, of course. He's played for, once again, some of the biggest clubs in Europe. Playing 500 games, or just over, with 207 goals, only 17 assists. And, you know, considering he's played 500 games and scored 200 goals, he's not up there with the best strikers of all time who have got, you know, like your Puskases and things like that, who have got nearly as many goals as games and so on. But he's definitely an icon. Definitely a player that 90% of football fans will know straight away. Xabi Alonso is a player that, as a Liverpool fan, I would love to see. I don't imagine his moments icon would be him as a Liverpool player. It would probably be something like a Real Madrid or what have you, but it would be amazing to have him in the game. I'd just go for him straight away. He would be the, you know, like every year I go for Jari Litmanen because he's my favourite player of all time in real life. But Xabi Alonso would be one that I'd have to focus my attention on for a new FIFA. 689 games, which is just so impressive. 47 goals. Only 63 assists, which sounds a little bit off to me. He has won 29 titles across his entire career. Two more players to speak of, and maybe two players that won't interest many. Everton and Liverpool fans, wake up, this concerns you. So, Cahill is a player that I would consider an icon. You know, he's played for some decent clubs along the way. Was an absolute monster in the air. Scored so many headers when he played for Everton. Just an unreal goal scorer. 838 games, which is, I mean, it's got to be up there with some of the highest number of games that a professional football player has played. He's got 408 goals and 122 assists. And, of course, he's won 31 trophies in his 883 games as well. And finally, the player that I would love to see get an icon more than any other player this year would be John-Arne Riise. Him and Peter Crouch for me, I don't know why, but they are just club legends, Liverpool legends. Now, I know they played for other clubs, and I know that they could be considered legends for other clubs as well. But John-Arne Riise in particular, he's played for a lot of clubs. He didn't really want to give up his or hang up his boots, I should say. So he did move around an awful lot in the last 2 or 3 years of his career. His most memorable stints were, of course, at Liverpool and Roma. He did play a fair few games for Fulham as well. Convinced his brother to join at one point. Played over 110 games for the Norway national side. And it's just a player that has such memorable moments. Some of the goals this guy scored for Liverpool were absolutely insane. The free kick against Man United, probably the most memorable. Just a brilliant, brilliant player that, as a Liverpool fan, I want him in the game so much. But again, as I've mentioned throughout the video, I think this might come under the club legend category rather than a legend of football. I don't know. You know, as non-Liverpool fans out there, do you consider John-Arne Riise to be an icon in football? Is he memorable? Because the word icon, in my opinion, is just like someone that is, when you think of like the world's best and the most memorable, and that's the biggest thing, the most memorable, does he come under that icon status? That's the question. But that's going to do it for your list for today. I probably do have enough in me to do another one or two, especially with your suggestions. Some of them were taken from the comment section of the last video. So if you do have any more that you want to suggest, feel free to drop them in the comments of this video. If you have enjoyed this one, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and until the next time, Goodbye.
Football Index. The game changed. Download the app now.